Subscribe now if you care about the old knowledge that actually worked, because what you're about to hear is one of those quiet plant secrets history never stopped using, even when modern gardening forgot it. Today we're talking about a native plant most gardeners walk past without a second glance. Yet for centuries it guarded fields, animals and food stores against pests all year long. This isn't folklore fluff. This is husbandry knowledge that fed families, protected livestock, and kept stored grain usable through long winters. Why this overlooked native plant stayed in use long after empires fell. Yarrow, known across Europe, Asia and parts of Africa as a field healer and guardian plant, was never bred for beauty or market appeal. That's exactly why it survived in working landscapes. Medieval farmers planted it at pasture edges. Roman soldiers packed it into wounds, and early homesteads kept it near barns and granaries. What mattered was not how it looked, but how reliably it reduced flies, beetles, lice and crop-destroying insects without poisoning animals or soil. Yarrow contains natural compounds that disrupt insect feeding and reproduction while remaining safe for grazing animals when used correctly, which is why it stayed in active use in husbandry long after decorative gardening took over. How yarrow quietly wipes out pests without killing the land. Unlike modern sprays that wipe everything out at once, yarrow works through pressure rather than shock. Its aromatic oils confuse insects' ability to locate host plants, and its bitter compounds discourage feeding. When grown around vegetable plots, animal enclosures or grain storage areas, pest populations steadily collapse because breeding cycles are interrupted. This is why historical farms reported fewer outbreaks rather than dramatic overnight results. A survivalist understands this is the superior method. You don't want sterile land, you want controlled land. Yarrow delivers that balance by targeting pests while leaving beneficial insects largely untouched. Historically, farmers applied it in fields, barns and stores, making the most of its natural properties. In crop fields, yarrow was planted as a living border. Farmers didn't scatter it randomly, you know. They placed it where insects entered, along paths, fence lines and wind-facing edges. For livestock, dried yarrow was hung in bundles inside barns to repel flies and mites. Grain keepers mix crushed leaves into storage bins to deter weevils and moth larvae. Simple, effective steps passed down through generations. These weren't symbolic gestures. They were repeated practices recorded across centuries because they worked. You can still apply this today by planting yarrow in a ring around gardens, drying stems at flowering time, and hanging them where insects gather most. Why it works all year rather than only in one season? Yarrow's strength is not limited to its flowers. In summer, the living plant repels actively feeding insects. In autumn, harvested stems retain oils that continue to deter pests indoors. In winter, powdered dried leaves can still be used in storage areas or added to animal bedding. This year-round utility made it invaluable before chemical treatments existed. A single plant served multiple roles depending on season, which is exactly what survival-oriented husbandry requires. Nothing is wasted, and nothing depends on supply chains. Here's how you can use it today, with practical steps that mirror old practice. Start by identifying native yarrow varieties in your region rather than importing ornamental cultivars. Plant it where pests enter rather than where it looks convenient. Allow it to flower fully, because that's when its pest-repelling compounds peak. Harvest stems just as blooms open, dry them in shade, and store them in breathable bundles. Hang these in sheds, barns, or near food storage. For garden protection, steep dried leaves in hot water, strain the liquid, and apply it to plant bases as a mild deterrent rather than a leaf-burning spray. These methods reflect how it was actually used historically, not how it's marketed today. Yarrow fell out of favour because it spreads easily and doesn't fit the manicured garden ideal. But, history doesn't care about tidy borders. It cares about survival and efficiency. Farmers who depended on harvests and healthy animals valued plants that worked under pressure. By ignoring yarrow, modern systems replaced a self-sustaining solution with products that require constant reapplication and, over time, weaken soil life. That trade-off makes no sense, really, when you look at long-term resilience. Yarrow represents a mindset rather than just a tool. It reminds us that ancient and medieval farmers didn't separate medicine, pest control, and animal care. One plant served many roles because observation mattered more than branding. When you reintroduce yarrow into your system, you're not just planting something. You're restoring a layered defense that works quietly, persistently, and year after year without dependency. If this kind of grounded historical knowledge matters to you, subscribe now. Share this with someone who still believes old methods belong in museums, and help keep practical history alive where it belongs, in the soil, in the barn, and in daily survival practice.